Usually it's a lot of times his back is on the video. There was a great yogi master named Raman, and he had mastered the ancient art of archery. So he was about to go out to the woods, and he invited his favorite student to come join him. And of course the student's thinking to himself, well, he's wanted me to do this 100 times, but nonetheless, he's my teacher, and so I have to listen to him. So his favorite student follows him out to the woods, and they go to this really magnificent oak tree, and Raman has a little flower in his collar, and he pulls out the flower, and he puts it on one of the branches of the oak tree, and steps back 100 paces, and says to his student, now how many times have you seen me do this? And the student said, well, hundreds of times. And you have always managed to hit the flower from 300 paces. Oh, and so Raman has this bag, and he opens the bag, and in it is this magnificent bow of this really precious wood, and this beautiful arrow, and then a handkerchief with lilies on it. So Raman says, blindfold me with the handkerchief with the lilacs. It was actually lilacs. And so the student obeyed and blindfolded Raman, and Raman, of course, faces the flower and pulls back the bow with all his might, pulls back the arrow and the bow with all his might, and lets the arrow go, and of course it whistles as it heads toward the target, totally misses the tree. So he pulls off his blindfold and he says to the student, did I hit it? Did I hit it? And the student says, you weren't even close. And he says, I thought we came here to learn the power of thought, and you were going to show me some magic. And Raman, the wise yoga master that he is, says, this was the first lesson in the power of thought. You can, when you want to manifest something, you need to give that thing or whatever your undivided attention. You cannot manifest what you cannot see. So that is the greatest thing. And if you know anything about the power of thought, if you cannot see it and feel it, you're probably not going to manifest it. So we've been going through the 10 secrets of success and inner peace, and this is the 6th secret, which is you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. Any path is only a path, and there is no affront to oneself or to others in dropping it if that is what your heart tells you to do. And that's from Carlos Castaneda. And from Cicero, he says, any man can make mistakes, but only an idiot persists in his error. Any problem can be solved with a spiritual solution. That is why Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, has told us over and over and over again, we need to condition ourselves for a spiritual experience, because it's our spiritual nature that's able to solve all problems. One of the most intriguing passages in A Course in Miracles, the book A Course in Miracles, says that you don't have a problem, you only think you do. So I'm sure some people are sitting there thinking, well, I don't know if that's true. I'm having a tough time paying my bills. That seems like a problem to me. The opening line of the Torah, and the Torah are the 5 first books of the Bible, the opening line of the Torah and Genesis say, God created heaven and earth, and it was good. So if God created heaven and earth, and the Creator created everything, and the Creator says it's good, then there is no bad. Now I know some people are going to think, get a grip. There is bad in the world, and there is evil in the world. It's when we feel separated from our sacred center that we start explaining all these unpleasantnesses in our lives as problems. If it feels unpleasant to us because we've separated ourselves from our spiritual center, then of course we're going to call it a problem. But in the world of spirit, in the world of the divine, in the world of God, in the world of the goddess, in the world of Buddha, or any other spiritual path, problems don't exist. Now that's really kind of hard to swallow, isn't it? That problems don't exist. When our spiritual connection is weak, and remember, if we all sat here and God kind of entered the room, or Jesus Christ entered the room, or any of the Ascended Masters entered the room, and they took a look at us, they would think that we all look equal. There's as much spirituality in Jamie as there is in Jackie. There's as much spirituality in Tristan as there is in Jenny. We're all equal spiritually. It's how we understand and are aware and how we express that in spirituality that makes a difference. When we move away from the world of spirit, problems come from our belief in separation. That's why it's always so intriguing to me how people who believe that God is out there somewhere, and this is an observation, this is my personal observation, not a unity teaching, it just seems that people who believe God is out there don't seem to want to take responsibility for their behavior or their choices. It's God, well, God made me do it, or God wasn't there, God was there, the devil, the evil one, I always loved the evil one. The evil one made me do it. So when our mind feels this sense of separation, and it's the ego. There's ego and there's spirit. In fact, I'm going to do a talk once, it's called As the Soul Turns. It's like the greatest spiritual soap opera of all time, As the Soul Turns. I'll do that. But anyway, we have two choices in life. Unity talks about the pivotal nature of the soul. We can either respond to life through ego, and the words ego, E-G-O, means easing, God out, or we can respond through life through spirit. When we're responding to life through ego, and we live under this illusion of separation, that's where all this disharmony comes from, and these diseases and all this unhappiness. And because there are so many people out there who feel this sense of separation, especially now, there are a lot of people who are feeling lonely, hopeless. There's a lot of disharmony in the world. That comes from a sense of separation, feeling that we are separate. So how can we go about changing our minds? If we're living from this ego, easing God out, and we feel this sense of separation, what can we do about it? How can we go about changing our minds? Well, here's some questions. Can we accept that it's our belief in separation from God that creates the attitude we label as a problem? Can we explore the idea that what we're calling problems are really errors in thinking, mistakes of the intellect, mistakes of the mind? If God is everywhere, then there is no place that God is not. We all say, and about every religion will say this, God is omnipresent. That means God is everywhere. Well, if God is everywhere, then God is in us. God is in the experience. It's not like God is everywhere but in me. How can that be? God is everywhere but not in Hitler. God isn't in the temple. God's only in the ashram. No, God is equally and everywhere present. That means God is within us. And God is in every single experience that we have. But believing that God is not in that experience, believing that God is somehow creating goodness and badness, is what keeps us in this illusion of problems. Problems exist because of the ego. So what we can do is we can create a new agreement with reality. Our new agreement with reality is that our thoughts are the source of virtually everything in our life. That's a little hard to believe. The thoughts that we're thinking today are creating what we're going to experience tomorrow, what we're going to experience 2 weeks from now, what we're going to experience 2 years from now. We're creating that reality for ourselves with our thoughts. If I say this, I don't have enough money to pay my bills, then the universe, and of course emotion comes with that, there's that feeling of stress. When we pair emotions and feelings with the thought, they become even more powerful. But if I throw that thought out there, essentially what I'm saying, it's like a prayer. Essentially what I'm saying is, God, Goddess, Creator, Great Spirit, this is what I want to experience in my life. I'm telling you, through my thoughts and through my feelings and emotions, that this is what I want to experience. I want to experience lack. Because I believe I don't have enough money to pay my bills. So what happens? We don't have enough money to pay our bills. If we feel that nobody loves us, then we're going to have that experience. We're going to be meeting all these rude people all day long, and we're going to enter into a relationship where the other person is emotionally unavailable and probably does things like beats us because we told the universe that's what we want to experience. So if we can change our thoughts, and instead of labeling, just send out the thoughts like an attitude of gratitude, or focusing on what we love about our life, what we love about our job. I have all the money I need. The universe is prosperous, therefore I am prosperous. My life is full of abundance. I have loving friends. All my relationships are kind and loving. Then that is what we will experience in our life. And I know it sounds like it can't be that simple. Come on. You're going to tell me that all I have to do is change my thoughts and my life is going to change? Yes, it will. It is true. It does take some focus and concentration. You can't say, I am lovable for a whole day, and then the next day say, damn it, nobody loves me. You just canceled out all those thoughts. You know, seriously, isn't that what we do? The universe is abundant. Oh, God, I don't have enough to pay my electric bill. We just canceled out everything. We have to do it with faith. We have to do it over and over and over again and believe it more than anything else. So, you know, and here's the other interesting thing. We carry every relationship in our head, in our thoughts, every relationship. We think about what they should be, what they shouldn't be, what they used to be, how I compare to them or how they compare to my other relationship. And we're constantly doing that in our minds. And so we experience every experience in our thoughts. We don't believe it. For example, if I go and I touch this, I have already sent a thought to my brain, touch the pushpin. If I want to scratch my ear, I have already sent a thought to my brain, touch your ear. We don't do anything without thinking, although we may not be aware of it. If I want to clap my hands, a thought has already come from my brain saying, clap your hands. But it's so fast that we don't even realize it. Nothing happens without us thinking about it first. So what we have to do is change our thinking. The world is the way it is. The economy is as it should be. The mean people in the world are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Obama is doing exactly what he is supposed to be doing. Putin is doing, I was laughing at somebody the other day, this is really awful, but we're thinking Putin. Kind of sounds like puking. You know, it's like, sorry, that's bad. We were thinking about that the other day. But Putin, you know, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. It's our choice how we're going to experience that. Are we going to throw more anger and hatred in the world? Or are we going to bless him? Send out loving thoughts to him so that he starts making the kinds of decisions that will help humankind and help people in his country. And it's that desire, when we see something like that, or we see an animal being abused and we think, oh boy, I wish that, instead of saying, oh, that owner was cruel, maybe instead we should say, oh boy, I know that animal's going to find a loving forever home. If we just change our thinking, that'll totally change the experience, and that animal will find a loving home. There's so many times on Facebook where people, they've lost dogs, and I'll often reply and I'll say, I'm sending an army of angels to bring that animal, whatever the animal's name is, safely home. That's more important than saying, oh, poor baby. Affirm all things that are good. Affirm goodness. Affirm peace. And I've shared this before, years ago. I don't know if they still do it, but every New Year's Eve, we used to come together at 7 a.m. in the morning at Unity of Harrisburg, and we did a peace meditation. People all over the world meditated at the exact same time. The time in eastern Pennsylvania was 7 a.m. After years of doing that, the Berlin Wall collapsed. Communism collapsed. That's the power. I've shared with you experiments that have been done of meditating in neighborhoods where there's a lot of violence. It does make a difference. So the way we want to change our minds, because if you have this mind that's full of separation, you're not going to solve any problem. You're just going to create more problems of separation. So we want to change our thinking. We want to change our minds. We want to create this new agreement. I am going to stay connected to Source. I am going to see the good in everyone and everything all the time. No matter how the outer appearance, I am prosperous. I have all the money I need to pay my bills. When my gas gets low and the little E light comes on and I'm still 50 miles from home, I affirm, I have all the gas I need to get where I want to go. I do. And I've never run out of gas. I'll say, I have more than enough gas to get where I want to go. I have more than enough gas to get where I want to go. And I've never run out of gas, even though it's on E and I'm still far away from home. It does work. We can't change matter. We can't change reality. So, 3 levels of consciousness. Let's sit and think about which level of consciousness are you on. There are 3 levels of consciousness. The lower level of consciousness is ego consciousness. That's the me world. That's where it's all about me. It's about the money I make, the awards I get. I'm separate from everyone else. I'm separate from God. In fact, I don't even think about God because I'm too busy thinking about me. So that's ego consciousness. Having money, having awards, doing better than the neighbor makes me feel better about myself. That's ego consciousness. This is the level where problems exist, on the ego consciousness level. For example, peace is personally impossible and successfully elude anyone on ego consciousness. Instead, there's feelings of despair, anger, hatred, bitterness, stress, depression. And it comes from the ego's anxiety trying to live up to some external standard. I'm only good if. That's ego consciousness. The way to go beyond the ego, of course, is to get to that higher level of consciousness. The second level of consciousness is group consciousness. We see a lot of that today. It's not really a step up from ego consciousness. It's just that now instead of it's a me, it's an us. It's our clan, our tribe, our nationality, the people who speak our language. We then start associations, we start aligning, that's the word, aligning with groups that we think make us feel better. You'll see that a lot in kids with gangs. They're more into group consciousness instead of individual consciousness. You'll see that with the Westboro Baptist Church. They're into group consciousness. Our group is better than yours. We have to do what the group says. We have to believe what the group believes. It doesn't matter who we hurt, who we walk over. That's group consciousness. Poverty, wars are all caused by the sense of group consciousness. This group is better than, whites are better than blacks, Republicans are better than Democrats, men are better than women. That all comes from group consciousness. And then we align with that group's beliefs. And then the highest level of all is this mystical consciousness. It's the consciousness where we don't just know. We understand and we feel that we are connected. There's no longer a sense of separation. You'll know if you're in mystical consciousness, if when you walk into a mall and you see, if you feel like everyone is a neighbor. Have you ever experienced that?
No.
No. I thought maybe you had.
No.
This is how you can tell when you're into mystical consciousness. When you're into mystical consciousness, when you go somewhere and do something with a group, you're you're not going to feel as if they're strange or weird. It's like you're going to feel like, oh man, I think I know these people.
I think
But,
I have that none of them all.
Oh. Oh, gee, where do you feel that? But that's when you get into this mystical consciousness. Have you ever experienced that? Everybody, you just feel like you're comfortable wherever you go because you feel like there are no strangers. That's more like it. You feel like no one's a stranger. You feel comfortable all the time, no matter where you are. That's one of the signs that you've made it mystical consciousness, God consciousness, when you can experience this connectedness, not only with each other, but with plants and animals and the earth. You understand there's this feeling of connectedness, and that feeling of connectedness is like awesome, because you never feel alone. You always feel like there are no strangers. These are my kin somehow. Even if they're doing weird and crazy things, they're still, you feel like there's no strangers. The keynote of this mystical consciousness is cooperation instead of competition. You don't want to compete anymore. You want to cooperate. You want to help other people. You want to do what you can so other people are successful. That's when you know you've arrived at the mystical consciousness. You feel the sense of connectedness. And you understand that when you harm someone else, because we're all connected, you're harming yourself. Any hate I throw out there comes back to me multiplied because we're all connected. This mystical consciousness. So you're not going to really understand, you're not going to see things as problems. You may see them as challenges or perhaps feedback. This is not the right person for me. This is not the right job for me. But they're no longer problems. It's just feedback. This isn't the direction I'm supposed to be going. These aren't the people I'm supposed to be hanging out with. This isn't the food I'm supposed to be eating, because it doesn't make me feel good. That's when you get to this mystical consciousness. Mahatma Gandhi said, man becomes great exactly in the degree to which he works for the welfare of his fellow man. Man becomes great exactly in the degree to which he works for the welfare of his fellow man. It's a place where loneliness is replaced with joy. Sadness is replaced with love. And it's a place where you're really going to understand what Thoreau says when he said, there is no remedy for love except to love more. Thoreau said, there is no remedy for love except to love more. That's what it's like when you're at this mystical consciousness level. Now I'm just going to walk back here, I'm going to sneak back here and turn out the lights so we can have a little bit of meditation. Meditate on these thoughts. I want to invite you to become comfortable where you're sitting. If you happen to be holding anything or if your legs are crossed, I just invite you to let them sit on your lap or uncross them. As you tell your body to relax, I invite you to take a scan of your body. If there's any tension, tell your body to release that tension. If you feel any uncomfortableness. Just imagine yourself with an eraser in your hand, and imagine your mind. And you can do that by just imagining you're seeing the inside of your forehead, and just take that eraser and just erase everything that might be there. Thoughts about anything that happened this morning, thoughts about what you're going to do after the service, so that you can be here and now. Because Spirit is here and now. God is in the present. I invite you to take one slow, deep breath as a way of telling your body to relax, and just one slow, deep breath. Inhale, and hold it, and then let it out really slowly. That's a sign to your body that you are open and receptive to your inner teacher. You are open and receptive to your inner teacher. I invite you to choose in your mind's eye something you would like to manifest. And I'm thinking more of a value. I want you to think of an experience that you would like to change your mind about. And I invite you to bring that experience to your mind. Maybe you're disgruntled about something, a person, place, or thing, an attitude, an experience, or a circumstance. Bring that to mind. Notice some of the negative thoughts and feelings you might have regarding that experience. Just notice. And as you're noticing the thoughts, the negative thoughts surrounding that experience or that person, place, or thing, or circumstance, I invite you to think about this. Were you or are you responding from ego consciousness? Are you responding from group consciousness? What if, in this experience and this circumstance, what if you loved first? What if you decided peace was more important than being right or getting your way? And I invite you to just bring to mind and understand and feel that because you are one with this experience, with this circumstance, with this person, place, or thing, the thoughts that you put out towards this experience, you're also putting out for yourself. So I invite you to take a step forward and love first. Take a step forward and be peaceful first. Take a step forward and decide that cooperation is more important than anything else. And I invite you to remember to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the remedy for a lack of love is more love. The remedy for a lack of peace is more peace. The remedy for a lack of understanding is to choose to understand first rather than be understood. The remedy for sadness is joy. So I invite you to just take in one deep cleansing breath, knowing that you are at the mystical level of consciousness. You are God consciousness. And from this day forward, you will be living your life from that level of consciousness. And so it is. Amen. I invite you to gently open your eyes and come back to this time and place. Move around a little bit in your chair. We're going to do prayer requests.